Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker. Now, let's start the show. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Authors Love Readers podcast. This is our second compilation episode. I've done quite a few interviews over the past year plus, and I've talked to a lot of authors. And as you probably could guess, we talk more than the allotted time. So we've had some great conversations that didn't make it into their final episodes. And I wanted you to hear what these authors had to say on a few topics. Even at a young age, readers can recognize a great story. Here is some of my conversation that touches on that with Tawdra Kandle. I have significantly older siblings, and my sister came back from college with Brothers Karamazov, and I think I was in first grade, and I picked it up and started reading it. And the thing, like, you could get some sense of the story, and yet, missed so much. But it's interesting that at that young an age, you can gauge, you can gather some of that story. The power of words is amazing. Lou Aronica and I got into quite the discussion about that. This is totally, well, it's not totally out of context, but there's a song that Hal Ketchum sings, and there's a line in it that says, days like a slow train trickle by. And I can just repeat that phrase, and it's like music to me. Isn't that wonderful? I think words are so amazing. So
yeah, and sung words are especially amazing.
Yes. I often read Dickens quite a bit as a kid, and he described Uriah Heep as unctuous. And I can feel it shivering my shoulders. I just thought, and I can remember as a kid thinking, I want to be able to wield the power of words that way.
Yeah.
I was just watching a movie about Winston Churchill, and after his political opponents, one says to the other, well, what just happened there? And the other one says, he just mobilized the English language for war. And I thought, he did. And wow. As well as words, music can have a powerful effect on us as authors and readers. Here are several authors who talked with me about that subject. Debra Salonen. How about more up-to-date song? Do you have anything or music that really speaks to you?
Now I have grandchildren, and they're exposed me to a lot of different music, which is quite exciting and fun. Never turn down a chance to listen to what they're listening to. I remember coming back from taking the three bigs. They're my older granddaughters. We have two little ones too. But we took the bigs, my husband and I, to my niece's house in San Jose. And as we were driving back from that dark evening, coming across that back up to the mountains, a song came on the radio, and I hadn't heard it before. And the girls started singing, and they were in the back seat, and they knew all of the words. And I was moved to tears. It was Ed Sheeran's Perfect. So that's really one of my very favorites right now. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Oregon to visit my sister, who's pretty much an invalid, but her son bought her 2 tickets to go to Andrea Bocelli. And he did a version of that with Ed Sheeran that was really beautiful.
I love that these songs are braided in with your family and the emotions. Yeah, that's wonderful. Kevin Tumlinson. The important question about your protagonist is he a stellar karaoke singer?
He is an amazing karaoke singer. Hasn't come up in the books yet.
As is Kevin, everybody. He is terrific.
I will say, shifting slightly away from the karaoke. I love karaoke. I will do karaoke all day, all night. They have to pry me out of karaoke bars. I will say though that the things that Dan Kotler is my protagonist. The things that Dan Kotler and I have in common tend to be like we're sort of these multi-hyphenate types, where we Renaissance man types would probably be a better way to describe it, because I get into just about everything. And I touch just about everything. I do my own cover designs. I do my, I do the marketing. I do all the research and everything. But on top of that, outside of that, I've got a background in engineering. I did a little bit of PI work when I was coming up. I've been an ordained minister. Dan Kotler doesn't have any of those characteristics per se, but he's a quantum physicist on top of being an anthropologist, that sort of thing. So it's, I like characters like that.
Okay, let's go back to your karaoke sort of a little bit. But do you have a song? Do you have a song that you consider your song, something from growing up years or college or earlier adulthood?
I used to sing Georgia on My Mind a lot, Ray Charles.
What about that spoke to you? I see. I always come back to the lyrics. Was there something in the lyrics?
At the time that I discovered that song, I mean, I was a weird kid when it came to music. I'm always like 2 decades behind everyone else, because in the 80s, there was a resurgence of 50s and 60s in the 80s. Remember this? Oh, you're too young to remember this. But me, right, old timer that I am, in the 80s, there was this whole resurgence, particularly the 50s music. And thanks to movies like Stand By Me or whatever, the era of our parents growing up had become the nostalgic movie trip of the 80s. And so along with that came the music. And so I was listening to a lot of that stuff. When Georgia on My Mind, when I discovered that song and all the work of Ray Charles, there was something about his style resonated with me. I became a big fan of Motown and R&B. And there's an attitude to that kind of music that appealed to me in particular. I've always kind of wanted to be that type of person, and I sort of am sometimes, and a lot of times I just kind of fall way short. There was a sort of, in that music, there's a kind of discovery happening. These people they're expressing something about their culture, about their background. And these are African Americans who suffered through Jim Crow laws and, segregation and that sort of thing, and overcame it to be successes. And I am a huge fan of the whole underdog motif. I don't particularly think I've been an underdog. I've probably caused myself to be an underdog more often than not. Just because of attitude, that sort of thing. I wasn't always a positive person. That changed with when I discovered I had a heart condition and had to get a pacemaker back in my 30s. But once, but I never really considered myself an underdog. But there was something that resonated with me,
and that made you more positive.
Yes. Yeah. It made me more positive because for one thing. I had this condition. It was a birth defect. I didn't know was there. And I go to the doctor thinking I just got a really bad chest cold or something. It's just been getting worse and worse and worse. I've always got no energy, sometimes hard to breathe. And they discover this thing. And, 3 days later, I'm under the knife and I get they put a pacemaker in. It's not a defibrillating pacemaker. It's one of these that, I had a bradycardia. My heart was slowly slowing. It was getting towards stopping. They put me under and put this thing in. And then a couple of things happened. One, I felt physically better. Like I was more energetic. I think I had a poor attitude because I felt like crap all the time, but the other thing that did happen was a sort of spiritual awakening. Like, why do I don't want to be negative, angry, bitter, resentful, This isn't me. This isn't who I am. I wasn't born to be this. And I don't think it's any coincidence that it was around that time I started focusing more on the writing and getting more books written, and that was a new era of my life. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Barbara O'Neill, you cover a lot of the arts. Are you also interested in music?
I love music. I listen to music, but I don't really have a lot of music.
Okay. Do you have a song like from growing up that was particularly important to you, that felt like it was an anthem? Or
I don't know if I have an anthem. I think I love so many different kinds of music that, like, for me, there was a couple of albums through like my youth that were really important. One of them was Led Zeppelin, for that whole album, except for Stairway to Heaven, which I will never hear ever happily again because it's just been played to pieces.
Okay.
And it's like such an uncool song, but Dream On by Aerosmith was a really big song for me and my friends and all of us when I was in high school.
And how about music now?
Music now, I love all kinds. I'm really a pop music person at the moment. I love pop music and I listen to a lot of it.
Are you drawn to certain kinds of music at different times based on what's going on in your life, what mood you're in? Do you play music when you write?
I do play music when I write, but it has to be exactly right. It sometimes takes me a really long time to find the right music for a book. I've really been on a big Leonard Cohen kick because I knew his music before, but for some reason, it just ripened for me at the last 2 or 3 years. And I have just been listening to every song he's ever written and his beautiful, scratchy, gravelly voice and these deep, poetic songs. And he's very inspiring to me as a writer. It's awfully dark work for the most part, so it's hard to write to it. So I end up drawing things like, thunderstorms with Celtic behind it or something like that until I can find the actual soundtrack for the book. That usually means that actually capture everything and all the emotions, which is a habit I actually started when I wrote my very, very first books because I had 2 very little kids and I sometimes had only like an hour to write. So I created these, at the time they were cassette tapes, so that I could sit down, get into the book and write fast and then like be back out into the world again in an hour.
I love that setting up. I think of it as a playlist, but I cannot write to anything with words in English. I have used sometimes, like I had the soundtrack from French Kiss. I don't know if you remember, and it had some songs, but they were in French, and I could pick up a few words, but not enough to really draw me out of my words. But if it's English, I will start typing whatever they're singing. I can't have words. It's got to be, So I either try high energy classic or soundtracks. Soundtracks are wonderful because they have the variation.
Yeah. I really like, recently, it's so weird. I even wrote a column about this at Writer Inbox. I really have found that like dubstep works for me when I'm writing. My son loves it. And I started like hearing it when I visited him once. And I was like, maybe I'm going to try this. So got some Lindsay.
What is it again?
Dubstep. It's, I don't know exactly how to it's mostly techno music. So it's kind of techno with a really heavy beat under it. And there's like usually some strings and, various sounds. And it's very repetitive and it really creates a certain mindset. It's really deep focus. But I think that, you'd have to really sort of like an intense kind of music to be able to enjoy that as a writing background.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would work for me. Although Zydeco can work for me. It's New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah,
I can see that. That could be pretty good. Yeah,
really upbeat. Yeah. And so I like stuff with a lot of energy to keep me. I type faster if the music's faster.
Well, I stay with the book longer if the music is right. And that's one of the things, because like after doing it for so long, sometimes you're just like, okay, I did my words for the day and off you go. But I know that I could stay longer if I just do it. I really fell in love with the movie Lion, and the soundtrack from Lion really kept me working on my last book.
That's terrific.
I really like that soundtrack.
I always think of the music as making me go faster. I haven't necessarily thought about it making me stick with it. I'll have to pay attention to that.
Steven Womack. So let's hear a little bit more about your growing up. Did you have songs that meant a lot to you at that stage? Did you have something that really resonated?
Oh, yes. And I, of course, came of age in the 60s and the 70s. So that era of rock, I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan. On the questions you were asking, if there was one particular song that hit me then and that stuck with me forever, it's got to be "Give Me Shelter."
Oh, that's great. Now, would you still consider that one your anthem songs?
I was listening to it on YouTube last night, a Stones live concert from the 70s. It still rings true to me.
You mentioned screenwriting, and you teach,
yes,
correct? Screenwriting?
I teach at the Watkins Film School in Nashville, Tennessee.
How do your students react to like the Rolling Stones or the rock that you said you really loved from the 60s and 70s?
They think it's old guy stuff. It's geezer rock to them. They listen to entirely different people and in entirely different ways. I'm very lucky. I have two wonderful daughters who I had children very late in life. So I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. So I just listen to their playlist, and it keeps me at least partially tuned in. My daughters get in my car, and the first thing they do is Bluetooth their iPhones into my car stereo system, and I listen to their music.
How do you think it's different?
Boy, that's a tough one. It is different, although my daughters love the 80s. I mean, they just, the stuff that I was listening to as a young adult in the 80s, they love it. It's just that it's different now. For one thing, both my daughters love the new upcoming generation of country singers. They love Taylor Swift and Luke Combs and people that I've never heard of until I started listening to them. And, it's the music industry, an awful lot like the publishing industry in one respect, and that is that artists now, you can't just make good music and put out albums and make a living. Every artist, every music artist now is an entrepreneur. One of the lead stories on the local news here, all these country music singers are opening up restaurants, and I guess Jimmy Buffett was the first one to really franchise his own name. But, Luke Bryan's opened up a restaurant on Broadway in Nashville. And it's the artists today, the musical artists today, they don't depend on managers and record companies and everybody else to take care of them. They are in charge of their own careers. They take ownership of what they're doing.
Yeah, it seems like some of that is learning from the lessons suffered by earlier generations who did rely on people to do things and got taken. And ended up both, I'm thinking music and Hollywood, people really suffered who shouldn't have.
It's easy to be taken advantage of. But the successful ones these days are they're as much, as I said, they're as much entrepreneurs and business people as they are artists.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. I think that'll make all of the creative pursuits healthier in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. They have that image of you've got to be the starving artist to be an artist. Not so much.
Yeah. I tried that once. It wasn't any fun.
No, I went from, I refer to it as my detour of practicality into journalism.
Yes.
If you're a fan of the Authors Love Readers podcast, you know that we get into the topic of food pretty often. Here are conversations with several authors that touches on that tasty subject. Kate Moore. So let me come back and ask you a really flippant question of what's your favorite taste?
Oh, my favorite taste? Oh, there's no question. It's brown sugar and butter.
Oh, yes.
It's butterscotch in all of its wonderful butterscotch, caramel, all its wonderful varieties.
We have a family saying that comes from one Thanksgiving where, for some reason, rutabaga is in our family Thanksgiving menu, and my mother was fixing it, and we everybody's fixing something at the same time, and we're saying, "But Mom, why are we eating rutabaga?" And as she's putting butter and brown sugar on it, she's saying, anything tastes good with enough brown sugar and butter on it. So that is now sort of a family mantra. Anything tastes good with enough brown sugar and butter on it. So, I don't know.
The rutabagas are there to serve the purpose
of holding up the brown sugar
on top.
Butter. Yeah. They also have Brussels sprouts in our Thanksgiving, and I'm like, really, guys? But see, I think you can just eat brown sugar and butter. You don't need to have the rutabaga underneath. But
I very often do just eat the brown sugar and the butter.
Those are wonderful tastes. Wonderful, wonderful. Yvonne Lindsay. And do I recall you telling me that you get groceries delivered in? Uh-huh. I thought that was magnificent, except I've tried it and they do not pick good produce.
Really? Our people are pretty good at that.
I'm not happy with that.
Yeah, no, our people are pretty good for that. But my mum had quite a bad car accident a few years ago and demolished her car and part of the house across the street. So I have to drive her everywhere. And she likes to shop more than once a week, and I can understand that because that's pretty much her only outing unless she gets a taxi somewhere. I tend to shop in store more often, but it's not unusual for me to do a click and collect order. So I actually shop online, so I don't have to be in store as long as regular times. And I have found that shopping with Mum twice a week is getting really expensive. I'm nowhere near as disciplined.
You can always find things. Yeah.
Easter, there's stuff everywhere.
I have thought they have the click and do order online and pick stuff up, and I tried that. Was not happy with the produce, but I'm thinking now maybe I can combo.
Yeah, you can. You could go and do your produce shopping, and
and then just pick up the other stuff they.
So I find when it comes to choosing cold cuts of meat, like your ham or anything like that, the shaved meat, I prefer to choose that from the window myself because they don't always get the right one.
Yeah, I've also wondered about ordering, meat roasts and stuff like that. I have not even tried that. When I worked at the Washington Post, what I used to do is go after work, which was there were a couple all-night grocery stores, so I'd be there at 2 and 3 in the morning with people stocking shelves. It was them and me. That was it. You can shop really fast when nobody's in your way.
Sure. For sure.
The choice isn't always so great, but boy, you can get through that store like nothing.
When my kids were younger, because I shop with a spreadsheet because I don't want to be in there any longer than I need to. And when my kids were younger, I used to tear it in half and give them half, and they'd take a trolley and they would go to the opposite side of the store and shop their way back to the middle. And then I'd start at my end and shop to the middle, and then we would go to the checkout with the 2 trolleys and just load it all up.
Oh, that's so efficient.
It was so good. But of course they grow up and they work full time, or they, go out elsewhere.
That's really rude. They want to go off and have their own lives, I've been threatening forever to make Callie learn how to vacuum, but if I could get her, well, no, she would not stay on task. That would be the problem. Yeah. Mary Buckham. How about a favorite taste?
Ooh, that one's a little bit harder, actually. To me, I'm not a gourmand at all. It's like put something in front of me, I will eat it because I'm doing something else. Something like fresh, sun-warmed raspberries I look forward to summer every year. Even though we can get raspberries now year round, no, it's not that same taste, that melt in your mouth pungency that you can get from something like sun-warmed raspberries.
That's making me crave raspberries right now.
Sorry.
I often ask authors what their favorite color is, but that question led to a very interesting discussion with Debra Salonen.
I don't actually have a favorite color, but sometimes right at the, it changes. But right now, if you're talking about what, like wearing clothes and stuff, I'm
yeah, you can take however you want to describe it.
Yeah. So that's just I don't think I have one.
Isn't it interesting, though, that when you asked that, it made me think that a lot of us have a color that we like to wear, and then we have colors that we like in our homes.
Right.
And then we have colors that we may be attracted to for flowers, or, and they can all be different.
And there are colors that I love the vibrant colors. I'd love to, that. But the house that we downsized to had my son and his wife and children had lived in it, and all the walls were different colors, and they were beautiful, vibrant colors that I loved and it fit their style and personality so well. But it would have killed me to live in that. So I know I had to go to something a little more taupe-ish, or, a little more neutral for my walls. And then I put brighter colors on paintings and stuff that I love. But, it's interesting. I love color, but.
And I think the psychology of color is so interesting too. I wonder if there's anything about why your choice in colors varies so much with the use of the color. I'll have to see if I can find something on that. Anybody know any research? Send me an email. Somebody want to do research? Send me an email when you finish.
Pamela Fagan Hutchins and I got way off topic, having an entire conversation about what life was like in the 1800s. What is particularly interesting about that is that we both write contemporary novels, and yet we were fascinated by this.
I always remember as a kid being on a trail ride in the mountains. This was, I think, in Tennessee. So it's the Blue Ridge rather than the Bighorns, but I'm on this horse, and I said, well, what's the horse's name? And they said, Lucky. And I said, okay, why is his name Lucky? And they said, because he walks on the edge of the path and he hasn't fallen off yet. Okay, I'm use it in a book someday.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm getting down.
No, his foot did slip a couple times, but he never fell, and I didn't fall off. So.
We have these big draft cross horses that we bought here in Wyoming. We actually bought them in the mountains. They were up working at a cow camp in the mountains at the time we purchased them, and they are awesome. And so we spend a couple of weeks to as much as a month horse camping in the mountains in the summer, where we'll load everything up, go to the mountains, stay up there without coming down, and camp out with the horses and dogs for a few weeks, and alternate hiking and going around on the off-road vehicle and trail riding. And so it's just as magical as it sounds. It's wonderful. And it does help you get over your fear of heights. There are just sometimes you have to suck it up.
Yeah. You either get over your fear of heights or you don't move a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Frozen in place. Come get her next spring.
One of my trips to Wyoming, we went up to Medicine Wheel in the Bighorns. Have you driven up there?
Oh, yes. Love it.
It was, at least when we did it, it was a 1-lane gravel up the side of a mountain with there's no guardrail or anything. And if you meet somebody coming the other way, one of you has to back up, curving and going around with no guardrail. And the time we did it was in June, and it was sleeting. And I
Yeah.
remember my travel buddy was the passenger. I was driving. And when we got to the top, she said, "I'm really glad you were driving." And I said, "I'm really glad I was driving too, because I was farther away from the edge."
Oh, goodness.
No.
Well, at 10,000 feet up there at Medicine Wheel, it's the June is not the month to go.
What month is?
I know. It's like every month, every the year, it's some level of freezing precipitation. It's just how much. But it is so characteristic of what I love about Wyoming. From Medicine Wheel, you can see forever.
Yeah.
Just forever. And you can picture for centuries the people that would come and pray and seek blessings and guidance for journeys and wars and families, and up the sides of these mountains they would come on foot, on horseback, and it's a powerful place. It's worth risking your life and sleep backing down a mountainside.
It is a powerful place. It is very compelling. And I've always been fascinated by, earlier I was really interested in early American history in particular. And I always could sort of imagine and empathize with the people like Daniel Boone, who came through the Cumberland Gap. And there was this area behind him that was still pretty wild, but they kind of knew what was there. And it wasn't that huge an area from the mountains to the ocean. And if he stood at the Cumberland Gap and looked out, and it never ended, it was just almost incomprehensible how much space there was. And I think how people must have felt about that, and how the immigrants who had come from smaller or from cities and smaller countries, to have that sense of space and possibilities. Wow, pretty powerful.
And for some of them, it drew them forward with that, like you're saying, that sense of possibility and hope. And for others, it must have been the most terrifying thing they've ever seen in their life. So open-ended. But boy, I mean, to me, it just sounds like heaven to stand there and think, I might get to see something no one has ever seen before, or do things no one's ever done.
And I think it's so interesting that I've read a lot of first-person accounts of particularly women going west on the Oregon Trail. The reactions are as individual as you would expect now. Some of the women are like gritting their teeth, I'm doing this because my husband is dragging me. And some of them are, hot dog, let's go. Look at this. I can do this. I can do that. And I often think of, that we tend to think, oh, well, all women were like this in the 1870s or 1840s. And they were all like that. Well, no, there was great variation in how people responded. It was totally individual.
But there was one thing that was true for all of them, and that is there wasn't a lot of help or backup, and the loss that these people, and I'm going to say women, because most of the accounts I read from that era, talk about the impact on women of losing children or child after child, of losing the spouse that was providing physical protection in some instances along the way. And that the response of some was that the places would just utterly drive them nearly mad or completely mad. One of my other favorite places near here is Crazy Woman Canyon, which is, if you ever come to this area, it's just spectacularly gorgeous. And the stories about it, no one will ever, I don't think at this point, know the exact story of how it got its name, but the most popular of versions is that it was a woman whose family was killed off, and as memorialized in Jeremiah Johnson, the movie, that she had to winter up there alone, and after having lost everyone and everything and no help to be found. It took some real chutzpah to make it through these kinds of journeys. And it makes me, at least in my life, feel like, wow, I'm in the lap of luxury. I will never know the kind of hardship that those people undertook willingly. It's just amazing to me.
Absolutely. Boy, we've gotten way off, but I'm going to say this one last thing. One of the things that fascinated me too was the number of women who would talk about that on the journey, they would take off a lot of their petticoats, partly because for safety, because a fair number of people caught fire and died because their petticoats would catch in the campfires. Mm-hmm. So they would take the petticoats off and hook up the skirts and basically kind of go against the mores of the time because of necessity and safety. And I'm thinking, oh, good for them. Now they're free and they can feel how much easier it is. But as soon as they reached civilization, the petticoats and all these impediments went back on.
Mm-hmm.
Willingly.
And it is interesting.
Why? But
yeah, the power of social structure upon us is a very, it's a strong force.
Parents so often have the biggest effect on who we grow up to be. Our conversations touched on that with several authors. Here are some of them. Steven Womack.
I had parents who were products of the Depression, and you shall have a paying job.
Isn't that funny? But the kids these days, the younger people, my father grew up during the Depression, but they didn't really suffer very much because his father, my grandfather, worked for the U.S. Tobacco Company. So people might starve to death, but they weren't going to quit smoking. So he had a job all through the Depression, and my father's family came through it okay, but he grew up with that mindset. And I can remember my father telling me, you don't have a job, just get a job, do anything. It's better to do anything than to not have a job. And I would get these crappy jobs in car washes as a teenager and stuff like that. And I would think to myself, no, it's not. I could be home reading a book.
Yeah, but it was worse not having money.
Yeah. But the nature of work has changed a lot. I see that in my students. My students at film school, they work very hard, but they work a lot smarter than I did at that age.
Oh, in what way?
They keep their eyes on the prize. I mean, a lot of them have, crappy retail jobs and wait tables just to pay their bills. But at the same time, they're in film school. They're looking for film sets to be on. They're looking for independent shoots to be on. If they're editors, they're out there looking to assistant edit, to get on the Avid, and they're all focused on the long view, much more than I was at that age.
Well, I wonder, though, do you think that narrows them too much too soon?
I don't know that. I do know that the most successful film students, the most successful of our alums, have sought to pursue work and opportunities in that field. They're focused. I know, I sort of fell into book publishing because I couldn't get a job as a newspaper reporter anywhere. So I thought, well, I like to work with words. So I sort of fell into book publishing, fell into art department, and I wish that I could go back and redo some of those things. I would have been a little more focused. I spent a couple of years. I needed a job, so I got a job in a university development office, doing research for a development campaign. I used my brain, and it was an okay gig, but did it contribute anything long term? Not much.
As a total side note here, I have to say, my dad served under Patton during World War II, but while he was stateside, he was overseas a couple times, but neither of those times was he serving under Patton. And one of his great responses to that movie was that George C. Scott sounded nothing like Patton, that Patton actually had a high squeaky voice.
He had a high-pitched voice. Yes.
And Dad was under General Ernie Harmon in the Battle of the Bulge, and he was known as Old Gravel Voice.
Wow.
Patton had a high voice. Yep. Little known facts.
Amazing. Yeah. Scott's performance in that movie was brilliant, but it wasn't all that historically accurate.
No. Well, a lot of those aren't, because there was nothing worse than watching a war movie with my dad, because I'd be watching for the story and the drama, and he'd be saying, "They didn't have that gun then." Like, who cares? He did. He cared.
Sounds like one of my readers.
Yes. Pamela Fagan Hutchins. We talked a little bit about your folks and being in Wyoming. Do you have sayings that they always used to say that you can now hear coming out of your mouth?
I don't think my dad said this a lot, but the way in which he said it stuck with me forever. I was playing on an all-boys softball team when I was, I think, in third grade in Wyoming, and I'm not athletically gifted. So here I am, the only girl on the team, and I'm out in the outfield and just praying no balls come to me. And of course, some other kid hits a ball and it goes right past me. And my dad stood up in the stands and said, "Don't just stand there playing with yourself, catch the ball." And I just nearly dropped in horror. I'm like looking down going, I wasn't playing with myself, I promise. So that one stuck with me.
But have you used it on anybody?
I do as a joke with my kids. They know the story. But the one that really I think I got from my dad was, if not me, who, if not now, when, which is a bastardization of the quote. But that really stuck with me. And with my mother, it was, "Are you really going to wear that?"
And do you do that now to your kids or your husband?
Oh, yes. "Are you really going to wear that?" Oh, yes. Usually as I'm pulling up a shirt that's a little lower in the front than I'd want on the youngest daughter, "Oh, come on." Or the back of my son's pants. But don't we all pick up some of that which we were mortified with our parents? It's just
when I was in high school, the style was for really short skirts, and my grandmother used to make some of my clothes. Fabulous seamstress, and I can remember standing on her dining room table in her house in Chicago, and she was hemming a dress that she'd made for me, and she had all these pins in her mouth, and my dad came by, and I'm the baby by a bunch, and he was like, "That's too short, that's too short, that's too short." And my grandmother threw all these pins going, "The girl's got good legs, let her show them, John." And I was like, "Grandma."
Go, Grandma. My grandma was a seamstress as well, and just an absolute delight. She's one of these women that kind of inspires me towards historical fiction and some of her stories. She also was the teller of dirty jokes. She was the one in the family who, with a straight face, would all of a sudden just let one fly in your ear, whispering. So you couldn't even say, "Y'all heard her, right?" But she loved to spring a good dirty joke on you.
No, not my grandma. No.
Go.
But she was talking about pioneering women. She flew for the first time when she was 80 plus. She flew from Chicago to Paris.
Oh, wow.
And we said,
Wow.
"Grandma, don't you want to, try a shorter flight to make sure you like this?" And she said, "Nope. This way, I'm over there. I'm going to see Europe. And if I want to get home, I have to fly back. If I fly and I don't like it, I'll never see Europe." So I said, okay.
What a great attitude she has. I think that's a way to get a lot of things done in life, don't you? You just go ahead and bite off more than you can think you can chew, and just keep chewing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining Authors Love Readers podcast for another compilation episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And come back next week for a regular scheduled interview with another author. In the meantime, I wish you a very happy week of reading. Bye. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.